Hello, I'm Lamarin, and welcome back to another day on BunchaSquares SMP. Now, if you didn't watch my first video, my big project for this server is to build a fancy feeder building with a functional flying machine curtain. That curtain is going to take a lot of honey blocks. So today, my plan is to create a honey block farm. I know how to make a regular honey farm, and I think I can figure out how to attach a crafter and recycle the bottles back into the system. Now, I could use a tutorial that would probably be more material efficient than what I'm about to do, but what I really love about Redstone is the process of puzzle solving. So, I'm gonna have you follow me in that process today. This is not a tutorial, but if it turns out, feel free to use it as one. Now, the best rates for honey farms are the nether or the end, because there's no day-night cycle. However, there's even better rates in the chunks I'll, actually have loaded regularly. And it only takes one person sleeping to make the night pass, so I'm gonna build the farm near to where I'll be working, instead of AFKing next to it somewhere else. I figure by setting this up first, it can generate honey while I'm working on everything else later on, especially when I'm digging out the side of this entire mountain. Alright, so I want this to be flush to the ground over here. We've got 8 of them. I'm gonna separate that one just a little bit, because I'm gonna have 7 for honey blocks, and 1 for honeycomb, just in case I use a lot of copper in this build. Now to start with the dispensers. When a dispenser picks something up with a bucket, or a bottle, the collected version of the item goes into its inventory. Now there's a couple of ways to get that item out of there. So the first decision I have to make is whether to item filter the honey bottle out, or to force the honey bottle out by filling every slot in the dispenser. Now the one problem with filling the entire dispenser is that the stacks do have to be pretty full, because, well, dispensers pick a random slot to fire. Hoppers always fill from the top left and onwards, so eventually one of the spaces is empty and you're going to get honey bottles in your dispenser. Now, this could be fixed by adding, say, a dropper that is also randomly placing the bottles in the dispenser, but there's always a chance, especially if you want to keep a limited amount of bottles that you have to worry about. And I say that that's a problem because this is the material difference between the two versions. Say if I were to use all 8 hives to produce honey, I would need 8 times of these resources. So that's about 120 iron and this much wood. Like, it's not that bad. Versus if I want to completely fill each of the dispensers with glass, there might be some optimal number where you just have to fill it most of the way, but assuming that you had to completely fill it, that's 72 stacks of glass. So, if you can't tell, I've already made my decision. I'm going with the item filtering. So for each of the honey ones then, I'm going to put the dispenser underneath facing into the placeholder hive block. But with shears, you don't have to worry about that same problem. But with some testing, I found that it's actually easier to work with if the shears for the honeycomb are sitting on top of the hive. Okay, I gotta think about this first, because hoppers trip me up. The way I see it, hoppers can do 4 things. They can push, pull, be locked or powered, and they can collect things from the ground. Hoppers facing into something pushes items into it. Hoppers underneath something pull items out of it. These are the basics. Most people know this. Pulling always takes priority. If I put a block up here, it's always going to get pulled down to here. There are also fringe cases where if you put enough items into hoppers in this configuration, it will actually split them because of how slow hopper pull rates are. But I'm not going to teach you that because I don't fully understand it. Part of what I find confusing about hoppers is that when they're locked, they behave differently depending on whether they're pushing or pulling. Here we have a situation where a block is being pushed or flowing down the line. But if I lock this hopper, it gets stuck in the one that is locked. If the hoppers are pulling, the item will get stuck in the hopper above the one that is powered. The way of thinking about this that makes the most sense to me is that locking a hopper prevents it from doing an action. In a flow, hoppers push items down the line until the powered one gets the item, which knows, oh, I'm powered, and doesn't do the action to push it to the next one. In pulling, hoppers pull the item down until it reaches a powered one, which then doesn't do the action of pulling it down the next step. But say if the hopper above the locked one is directly pushing into it, well, it's still free to do its action, and this one is free to do its pull action, and the item goes through. Which is why when we place hoppers down, we place them facing into a block so our items don't go running away on us while we wait for them to be sorted. Now I need to lock all of these ones. And to detect when a new honey bottle has entered the filter so we can let it through. So the way I have this set up, each of these should require a signal strength of 2. 1, 2. And honey bottles are weird because they only stack in 16, so each of these is 4. If I remember right, I had... Yes. So that one will get put down to there. And I just gotta do that for all of them. I learned how to make item sorters like this from an Impulse SV video. I don't think this is an exact copy of his design, but I don't actually remember what his design was, so I cannot confirm that. Now let's get the firing mechanism sorted. So what we're going to want to do is detect when any of these nests have a honey level of 5. And because glass only goes one way, we do it like this. So we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And this will be a power of 1, so the comparator will pick that up, put it back, and once again we repeat that down the line. Quick test, if we hit this with a power level of 5, yep, the dispenser fires. And we can figure out a slightly different firing mechanism for this one because it's going up instead, which means we get to use glass and not repeaters. Alright, so that goes 1, 2, 3, math. No, not this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yes! Don't worry, I'm gonna cover all this ugliness up. I'm way too close to my neighbors to not make this pretty in the end. Get a bit nervous having only 2 in each of these, so I think that'll now work. Now here comes the fun part, which is processing the throughput of all of these hoppers. So we want this to make a block, but only fire when it's actually full. So when it's as strong as this, shoop, we'll get some honey. And how do I want to power that? Oh, bam. Right. Now I need to stick a bubble column in there. Not a bubble column. Huh, I wish. I'm going to save myself a lot of time and effort. And I am going to make this a bubble column. I said that before as a mistake, but I mean it now. So I think that means the next step is figuring out how high up these items need to go. So let's build our little enclosure. I've got an idea of how I want to redistribute these bottles already, so I'm gonna leave it blocked up like this. So I place the return hoppers right here, the droppers right here, even more hoppers on top of these. Can I remember how to make this? We'll find out. Now this next part that I'm building right now is the greedy minecart from Mumbo Jumbo's video, Redstone builds everyone should know. Alright, so the minecart will sit here, which means the piston will be extended in this tree. Okay. So I need another, I need another hopper. Okay. Okay, so we detect from this guy. We program it using that guy. Yes. Right now, because there's nothing in here, I think it should just let the minecart through. Oh, well, it would if there was literally anything in the minecart. Goodbye! Yay, and then it gets stuck again. Kind of. Okay, let's try that again. Maybe I was just standing in its way, but I want to be sure that it doesn't get caught. Awesome! So the reason I'm doing this is because I want it to equally redistribute the bottles into the system. I don't want the minecart to just go as soon as it gets the bottles from crafting one honey block, because that means only the first 1 to 4 will get filled. And 23 is the minimum that a comparator will detect that's different from just 1 or 4. So it won't be perfectly equal, but at least it will have enough in it to go forward and back and put a couple in each. And with that, we can make our auto bits shooter, which will detect when bottles come through here and shoot again. I'm just gonna have it so that it makes all of them fire when one of them is in there. Alright, did I remember that correctly? Oh, this auto bits shooter is also from the same video. Yeah, that's powering nothing but the hopper. This needs to be 1 block lower, which is going to be a minor problem. Yeah, this is off to a rough start. Majorly unsure about how I feel about this solution. Depends if it works. Wait, no, I don't want that much stone, please. So now that we know how tall this is going to be, we need the bubble column and the item filter, which will separate out the output, or the honey blocks, from what needs to be put back into the system, which is the bottles. What I actually want to do is that. Oh, that's so close to lining up. So this will glide gracefully across this. Get spit out onto this here. That there. Alright, so what I'm going to do with this one is, if it's just a bottle, it'll flow right down onto that, but if it's a honey block, it'll go down into this filter, and from there, basically I want my honey blocks to eventually end up in a little chest down there. And this one will be locked. Okay, I'm trying to remember now. There's sort of 2 ways to do it. The other one I did earlier actually locks both this one and the one below it. We don't want the one below it to be locked because I think I'm going to make this another hopper here. I'm not sure that this is an actual existing thing. This line is going to run all the way down here into some chests. Into some chests that are right here, and I think that shouldn't interfere with it at all. Alright, got the items in. Alright. And finally we need to collect some output from this one. Just a goofy little like couple of double chests right here. Okay, I'm kind of nervous, but I think it's time to test it. Because I've preloaded the minecart with 19 glass bottles so that when these 4 go through, that'll be enough for it to go across. And let's say somehow magically this nest made 4 balls of honey. It'll go through and go up there. You push it in. I will say, it's an objectively goofy solution to have it spit the bottles just down into there. And yet, like, it works. We got a honey block down here. And might actually be time to add the bees. Here they are, the little stars of our show. The dispenser with shears was really wanting to go backwards, so I'm just putting a couple of hoppers facing all the way through so that I'm not losing all my honeycomb. But I think all that's left is to make it pretty, like I promised. And that is my honey farm done. I did a little test to see how well this is producing by staying in the area for an hour, sleeping through nights. The result was 11 honey blocks for that hour with 1 day of rain. I don't know a lot about honey rates, but this feels a little bit low for 7 hives, so probably don't build this. However, I think it's good enough and will be just fine for my purposes. And the best thing is that next time, I can start working on my theater.